So I'm delighted this evening. We're here at Fisher Meredith, based in Chancery Lane, with Ricardo Matt Dos Anjos and
Alex
Pepler. So, as I say, the purpose of this video interview is to give you an idea about behind the scenes of a legal firm, and also to cover one of the key questions. But if you've got a question, feel free to add it into the comment box as well. So I asked Ricardo to send me a list of questions, and one thing which sort of like took my attention was Brexit, partly because I did about 40 plus interviews early this year, mostly around Brexit, and I have to admit I didn't think Ricardo was going to be that interested in Brexit as a solicitor, but you were. So let's focus on, we're going to focus on two different aspects. One is what's happening right now in the Supreme Court. So it's the highest court in the land for civil cases. So right, I don't know when the case, Alex finishes. Is it this week, or does it go on?
The hearing in the Supreme Court has finished today.
Okay.
It started on Monday, and it's been a 4-day hearing, and it's a really important case constitutionally. In fact, they've got all 11 judges of the Supreme Court, the most they've ever used for any single case. And what they are deciding on, firstly, is the question of who is allowed to start the legal process to get the UK out of the EU. Is it the government who is allowed to do it on their own, using the ancient royal prerogative powers, or does Parliament have to pass an act enabling that process to begin? Now, the High Court ruled earlier this year that Parliament had to do it. The government have appealed that to the Supreme Court, asking the Supreme Court to overturn that ruling and say that the government can do it on their own. Now, over this week, the Supreme Court have been hearing arguments from the government on one side and from the challengers on the other, which includes a variety of people, including a businesswoman and various European nationals, on whether Parliament has to have the final say on whether we leave the EU in order to implement the referendum results. There's also been intervention from the governments in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, and they say that the devolved administrations and legislatures in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland also have to be involved in that process. And so the upshot of all of this is that potentially the result, which we're expecting in the new year, could be that the government isn't allowed to simply start the process to leave as they want to do. In fact, they need Parliament to authorise it, and possibly they even need agreement from the legislatures in Scotland, Wales and or Northern Ireland as well. And the issue with that is it could potentially hold up for an unknown period of time the point at which we can start the process to formally leave the EU.
So you're probably thinking, what's this got to do with an investor? And that's where, Ricardo, thank you for your explanation. And it's a fascinating story of Brexit this year. It's, you know, when I started 2016, I didn't envisage this year being, one, a Trump year, but we leave that for another day. And secondly, I didn't envisage Brexit, and nor did the poll. And I have to admit, it caught a lot of people off the hop, including, you know, significant property investors and so forth. What impact have you seen, Ricardo? And Ricardo's experience, just to let you know, I hope I've got this right, 20 plus years of property or law experience, about 20 years. So
20 years I've been practicing law, primarily residential property conveyancing, all aspects of that, buying, selling houses, remortgaging, bridging loans, anything and everything to do with the property, buy-to-lets, everything along those lines.
Sure. Well, one thing, so I host property events in London, central London mostly, and southwest London. One thing which was interesting to me today, and I hope I'm paraphrasing Totem Finance, Piraj Sefanism correctly, he said that there's been an increase in the bridging loan market of 62% this year. It might be 1 quarter, but 62 is significant. Now, I'm not saying that's got anything to do with Brexit, but you come up with bridging.
Yeah.
So let's just have a look at, for investors who are thinking, and I've spoken to quite a few yesterday who said, look, we're actually going to wait until Brexit, you know, until everything happens. And listening to you, Alex, it sounds like Okay, the media talks about potentially March. There's a date in March, I think, but it may be a lot longer than March. So it's a long time to be waiting potentially for something to be happening.
And I think my experience has been that initially, once the Brexit shock was announced, was that buyers, sellers, investors of all sorts paused, and there was an attitude of what's going to happen. Let's wait and see. So more and more people did nothing. So there was inactivity in the markets, which I think then creates a situation because people aren't selling, they're not putting their property on the market. People aren't buying because they're worried that they'll buy it and in 2 weeks' time the price would have dropped by a significant percentage. So to my mind, there appeared to be a wait-and-see approach by a lot of people. And as the months trickled by, and the increasing uncertainty as to when the Chapter 50 will be exercised and a date for us to leave the EU occurs, as that uncertainty has increased, it seems that more and more that people have started to, from my experience, start to return back to the market a little bit now.
When did you notice the movement back?
I think we had an influx of new instructions in September onwards, and I think people had got to the point where they were thinking, we can't wait forever, life's got to go on, we've got to carry on doing our business, or even just people who are buying and selling, non-investors, still need to have that bigger house, the more bedrooms or what have you. They might have been waiting a little bit of time to see if the prices were going to change, or they were going to falter as a consequence. Now they decided, we've got to progress, things have got to move. So from our experience, our department, we've had quite an increase in new instructions and new matters, and I think whether that's just we've been fortunate or whether that's a reflection of the marketplace, my feeling is that it probably is, and there probably are more people out there who've now decided let's carry on business as usual, because as with the court case Alex been talking about, it's looking more and more likely that the actual trigger date is going to be further and further afield. So people don't want to stop transacting their business for 3, 4, 5 months, 8 months, 18 months, who knows, or how long it might take.
Your focus is on the residential market. Now, some of my listeners may be involved in the commercial market. Do you think there's any significant differences in the impact of Brexit on the residential to commercial? It's probably quite a tricky question.
It's difficult to say. I mean, again, there's very much the wait-and-see approach, and I think businesses, depending upon their strategies, may well have the time to wait and see. Certain businesses will be tied to fixed leases where they'll be coming to an end and they've got no choice but to negotiate a new lease term, which may favour them in a market of uncertainty. Landlords might be worried and may want to lower prices. Equally, if the business is in a lease situation where they have no choice but wish to remain in that location, then the usual bartering powers and strengths still remain between the landlord and the tenant. I think other businesses that may be looking to invest or move into London or expand in London, what have you, or other areas of the country, they may be thinking, let's not expand just yet, let's wait and see what happens, because the commercial rents could start to change or vary. So I suspect there are going to be some differences. The recent stamp duty hike that has impacted upon residential properties and second properties and buy-to-let properties that people are buying won't bite on commercial properties. And I think there is a move in the markets from those people who are maybe large landlords or small developers to refocus and maybe look at commercial properties, not just for that reason, but that is a bonus for them, in addition to the interest, the impact of the tax implications for landlords. I think commercial properties are maybe looking as a possible more of an option going forward.
So it's interesting to hear the difference between commercial and residential. Alex, so the key date? Have they said when the findings will be announced in the new year? But is it likely to be January or?
It's likely to be. Well, the judges have said that they recognise people want to know as soon as possible, but it's a very complicated issue, so it's likely to be January. The government have said they want to start the Article 50 process for leaving the EU in March, and depending on the outcome of the case, it's possible they will be able to do that. Even if the court says you need to get an Act of Parliament to approve you starting this process, it's possible that Parliament will all agree this shouldn't be held up and we should get something put through quickly to enable that process to start, if not exactly when the government wants to at the moment, then shortly after. But it depends if they're able to build that consensus in Parliament across party support in order to ensure they can do it in a timely fashion. What would be more interesting, I think, is if the court says actually you need agreement from Scotland and Northern Ireland and Wales, because those regions all in the referendum voted to remain, and there is a strong feeling in each of the governments in those countries that they don't necessarily want to see Brexit happen, and so if they are in effect given a veto, then it could start to look like it's going to be very tricky to actually put the Brexit process into action at all in the foreseeable future. So I think that'll be a key factor in the court's decision.
So, Ricardo, thank you. Is there anything else to add? So we are going to do a much more data-driven interview after January, or in January, or tailored more to the open market in terms of property and law rather than Brexit. But when Ricardo put the question Brexit, I jumped up. So
it's increasingly, it never ceases to leave the topical sort of stage at the moment, does it? For one reason or another, Brexit has been dominant since the vote. Even now, with this Supreme Court looking at it, the implications are constantly being thought about and trying to be calculated and estimated and so on. It continues to remain topical as much as some of us might not want it to be.
And what you also find is that while the court's been looking at it, in parallel, the government and Parliament have been calculating how it might go and trying to put in place plans, because the government obviously wants to push ahead as soon as they can. So it might be that even though the court may rule against them, they're starting to put the parliamentary machinery in place to push ahead with it as soon as possible. But I think we'll know a lot more once the court has ruled in the new year.
For sure. So it might be a good time for us to do that interview, maybe more or less live when it takes place.
Once we have the
date,
the court's decision.
Yeah, so I think that might be a good opportunity. I just want to say a huge thanks to Ricardo for being an active attendee this year from Fisher Meredith. How do people find out more about Fisher Meredith? Is it a website or email? Or?
You can Google us, search for Fisher Meredith, www.fishermeredith.com. .co.uk. See, we're everywhere. And myself, you'll find me on the website, or you can email me.
So I've abbreviated your name, Ricardo. So Ricardo Map Dos Anjos.
It is, yeah. So, but you can find me as Rick RIC.map at fishermeredith.co.uk also.
And we've got a Facebook presence, a LinkedIn presence, Twitter presence.
Okay. I have to admit, I wasn't aware of the Facebook presence, but definitely aware that you're on Twitter and such. So, as I say, huge thanks for you joining us this afternoon. As I say, going forward, in terms of Brexit in January at some point, I will certainly be doing another interview with Ricardo and hopefully with Alex as well, because Alex is paying a lot more attention to Brexit than I am at the moment. So, as I say, huge thanks for you joining me this year. My first event of the year starts on January the 5th, so it's quite an early start. Just want to get things moving. Thank you for your time as well.
Pleasure.
And thank you.
Thank you.